Bart, just real quick? I don't seem to.
Just a second.
Welcome to New Tracks Live. New Tracks Live is the weekly meetup of the New Tracks modeling community that provides unique mentoring opportunities to enhance your modeling skills by connecting with talented modelers and manufacturers from around the globe who generously share their knowledge and artistic expertise. Build your confidence, refine modeling techniques, and share your projects with a supportive community of fellow modelers, all while enjoying the world's most rewarding hobby. Join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Zoom and YouTube for the live meetup. Missed a program? No problem. Individual show segments are uploaded to YouTube for convenient on-demand viewing. Be sure to connect with the New Tracks community by joining the New Tracks Facebook page, where you can interact with other modelers and see what they are modeling. Visit our website at www.newtracksmodeling.com to register to receive Zoom links for the weekly meetup and get more modeling information. And now, here is the host of tonight's New Tracks Live, Phil Edholm.
Welcome, everyone. I wanted to welcome you tonight to New Tracks Live, which obviously one of the things we've done is we've made the change of actually naming this as New Tracks. This is our live event where we get together live every week. So figured that way we'd have something we could call it easily. What I want to do is very quickly spend a couple of minutes talking. First, welcome to New Tracks Modeling 2026. We are really, it's a new year. There are going to be some changes. I don't think they're going to be major, but hopefully we'll make this a much better live event and thing to come and participate in as a community through 2026. Before we start, since we haven't been together, Happy New Year to everyone. Hope everyone had a great holiday break. I know there were, I think, about 15 people on New Year's Eve, even though we didn't have a formal event. So the community got together just casually. Before we start, this is kind of what we have on tonight's program. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the change. Obviously, you guys noticed that, Tom decided to step back, and I stepped forward at this point to try to host the show and move things along. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Then Henry's going to talk about the 2026-27 scholarships. We're announcing the scholarships that we'll be delivering this year. They'll be awarding. The applications are up online, and one of the things that we obviously are looking to do in the next 6 months is go out, or 5 months, is go out and encourage applicants among the college attending community. Then we get to the real guts of the program tonight. Doc Lovelace is going to do a study in modeling graffiti. Bernd Fanghanel is going to do a driveline repair on a brass Heisler. Something I think is really interesting, because you can get sometimes these brass locomotives that need reworking, and they're pretty reasonable. He shows how he's doing those kind of projects. We're going to do one of our layout tours. This is Jeff Bulk's Chili Line layout, which is an interesting narrow gauge layout that is very transparent, so to speak. And then finally, we'll close with Bob Davidson with his workshop tips and tricks. So with that, what I'd like to do is take a moment and kind of talk about where we are and where we came from in terms of the whole New Tracks modeling environment. So I apologize, I have an issue here on my slide, and I'm going to repair that because it's I apologize, because this is going to There we go. Okay, I apologize. That was supposed to be integrated. So, New Tracks modeling, started out in 2000, 2000, about April of 2000. Jim Kello had been doing New Tracks as a column in a couple of magazines, and kind of his moniker. And he started this as a live event and kind of hosted it. And people came to it because COVID was going on. And through that, we grew a community. And that community has continued forward since 2000 to now 2026. So, over 5 years of becoming a community. What happened was when Jim started this, he was paying for the Zoom and he was paying for the website. So New Tracks Modeling was created as an LLC to basically protect himself from any legal repercussions of being essentially the operator of this. And he actually ran that essentially as a business. He ran, but not a business for profit, as you'll see, but a business where he sold people opportunities to advertise on New Tracks and do things. And then that money was used to pay for, things like the Zoom account and our website, et cetera. We then did the Patreon the same way to have all of you potentially support New Tracks Modeling. Then we decided to do the scholarship. The scholarship, because we want to do a 501c3, was done as New Tracks Mentoring. It was a different organization, had a board of directors, et cetera. So there were two financial groups. Jim decided, as part of stepping away from New Tracks, because he really wants to step away and focus on his family, he made the decision that he wanted to financially no longer be integrated at all with New Tracks. Jeff Jordan and I spent a bit of time talking about what to do. Quite frankly, I live in California, so an LLC is very expensive. It doesn't make any sense. We started talking about different kinds of nonprofit organizations and said, well, a 501c3 would make sense. And Jeff said, well, wait a second. I think the charter of New Tracks Mentoring was basically to do two things: to provide mentoring to model railroaders and to provide a scholarship for young model railroaders. So very quickly, what we realized is that the logical thing for us to do was to bring these together into a single organization. So what we've done is we brought New Tracks Modeling into New Tracks Mentoring Inc. Jim Finance has shut down the bank accounts that he was using. It's now all integrated together into a single organization with two goals. On the left is New Track Modeling, what we're doing tonight with New Tracks Live, the Facebook page, what we do on YouTube, really focused on today's modelers. And then the other side of what we do are scholarships. And those are focused on tomorrow's modelers. So scholarships for young model railroaders who want to pursue a STEAM degree with proven model railroading experience. And we had 4 great scholarship recipients last year. And I think we'll have some exciting scholarship recipients this year. So one comment as you look at this is you'll notice that on the left, we don't include a magazine there. Tom did a great job, I think, of producing a magazine. But a magazine is a huge amount of effort, and it's really less about the community. You can read great articles in magazines. Obviously, Joe's here and has an outstanding magazine and reaches a huge number of people. He has 71,000 people reading his magazine every month. So that's really the kind of publications that get great breadth of readership across the model railroad community. And quite frankly, I'm not sure it enhances us as a community. One of the things, we sent out a survey. I'll ask you how much you think a magazine or some form of publication enhances your participation in New Tracks versus potentially other things like emails or things on the website. So with that in mind, what I thought we should just talk about very briefly is, what is New Tracks Modeling? So a question for all of you: what is New Tracks Modeling? Is New Tracks Modeling something you do? I would argue it's a mentoring community. I think when we talked earlier, just before we started, the comments was, it's basically a group of people that I meet with and I exchange information with, and I sometimes learn new things and I sometimes teach people new things, but it's more about the community. We're focused on better modeling through mentoring. As Jim Kello always said, if you come away from one of our sessions, you didn't learn something, you really weren't listening that hard. So, hopefully it's that learning that one thing. And it's, by the way, this is a very important differentiator of why this virtual community is so fundamentally different than an online search community. So, when I go online to search and I want to do water, and I go look at modeling water and I put that as a Google search, I get a lot of things that tell me how to model water, but I had to know that I wanted to model water. What's interesting on new tracks in this interactive live event is that sometimes somebody puts forth a technique that you weren't looking for, but you realize, hey, that's different than what I did, and I really like that concept. So the concept of being live and having this live interactive community actually enhances the way you get information. And it's volunteer based and donations funded. So to me, I'd be a little passionate about that. That's what I see this community as being. When Greg commented earlier about the friendships that he's made here and why he comes to New Tracks, that to me is what it's all about. Within that, we have these 3 community channels. We talked about that. New Tracks Live, our weekly meetup where we get together. The Facebook page where we can interact after the meeting, and we can take things that you show here. Somebody asks a question, somebody shows something, and you have something that was interesting. Say, hey, I saw this on New Tracks Live. Here's how I did it. And then, of course, we take this content and we put it on the YouTube channel. So that's a little bit about what I think of new track modeling is. What I'd love each of you to think about is, what does it mean to you, and how do you see it going forward and having meaning? So one of the things that obviously we will talk about is supporting New Tracks, which is really New Tracks mentoring now in 2026. So we will keep the Patreon that we have there in place. The Patreon donations essentially pay for the Zoom and the website and all the costs that we have as costs. So everything that's gotten donated through Zephy and the other platforms, and that beyond that basically goes to the scholarship. And either individuals or businesses can donate to NTMI, either using the Zephy platform or directly. And we will have a donor certification for donors to NTMI. One of the things I'm excited to say is we have 3 platinum sponsors in 2026. The Great Sale Model Railroad Show, Scott Gear, there's Dennis Brennan with Brennan's Model Railroading, and the Amherst Railway Society. So, the good news is between those 3, we've already funded over 1 scholarship. So really good in terms of where we're going forward. So with that, I've reached the point where I'm going to stop talking, and we're going to go ahead and start proceeding with the show. I'd love to get some feedback for those of you interested after we get done with the formal meetup and get to the end and we turn off the YouTube. I'd love to have any feedback from you about what you heard tonight. So with that, I'd like to run a little video from our sponsor, Brennan's Model Railroading.
New Tracks thanks Brennan's Model Railroading for being a 2026 Diamond sponsor of New Tracks Mentoring. For over 25 years, Brennan's Model Railroading has been offering products focused on the O-scale market. Brennan's focuses on landscape materials and craftsman kits. Brennan's Better Ballast is a prototypical size and natural color blend of real crushed granite, and Brennan's has developed a complementary line of natural ground cover materials. Brennan's craftsman kits are designed to deliver great results that anyone can build. The complete photographically illustrated instructions explain in step-by-step detail how to create an outstanding model. The Frank Ellison Tribute series of kits take Ellison's scratch-built iconic structures to a new level using modern methods and materials. See the complete line of products on the Brennan's Model Railroading website. Use the QR code to visit.
So with that, I'd like to introduce Henry Primas.
Hi there.
Pat's
I
got
on?
a spotlight. But yeah, Pat's got a spotlight you here, and add you on as a spotlight.
Ah,
There you
there we are.
go. Howdy, howdy. So
Okay.
Henry's going to tell you that we had a very successful year raising funds for the scholarship, and we're doing some exciting scholarships for next year. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just throw it over to.
Well, yes, we had a very good year of raising funds. We were able to support the four $2,000 scholarships, which we were able to give out to young modelers. And I think it was a great thing. I do appreciate the donations from everybody. Some people give large donations, some people give small donations, but small donations add up and are very much needed. Um, there are all sorts of different ways to contribute, but one of the things I want to concentrate on tonight is, well, what's set up. There are two parts to the scholarship. One, we have to raise the funds to actually fund the scholarships. Two, we need to get people to apply for the scholarships. Um, those are the two sides that I look at every day and think about. I'm always trying to think of a new way to try to get more people to apply. Because the more that apply, I got a feeling there'll be more money from donations coming in. This year, we have sufficient funds to fund three $2,500 scholarships. Oh, okay, it's changed. No, not the scholarships, but what's on the screen, um, which is going to be very great. This puts us basically the same as I believe the Walters Scholarship. But we are a nonprofit. We're just a group of guys together, a group of railroaders that love what we do and play with it. And we're trying to continue to keep this on for younger people. Um, I don't know about you, but I know when I went to college, I left all my trains at home. And it sat for approximately 20 years. We're trying to keep help with these scholarships to keep young people going. Um, there are all sorts of ways you can put a layout in your room. I don't care how small your room is. There's ways to do it. But one of the things that I'm looking at right now in January, because our scholarship applications are open, they're open until June 1st, but we are now looking to increase the number of people who apply for the scholarships. And with that, there are many things. And basically, what I'm going to do is ask everybody in the group to help with this. If you know some young people, if you know young people in any of your train clubs. Now, if you're like me, I don't know any young people. Most of the people I know are my age or a little younger. And what we basically look at is the youngsters or people who are in their 30s. Well, we need to dig a little bit lower. I've come up with several ideas, and one which I'm working on very hard is going back to colleges and seeing who has a model train club and trying to get the people in the model train clubs to apply for the scholarship. Um, right now, I've been able to contact 3 universities, and I haven't heard anything back from them, and we haven't seen anything coming in yet for the applications coming in. But I'll ask you, go back to where you came from. I'm talking about from high school, college, grade school, anywhere. I just passed a community college the other day
So,
that I didn't know existed.
so I
Am I
think those are
rambling
great.
on?
Those are great ideas, Henry. I think, in the interest of time, because we have a short amount of time tonight, I think one of the things we should probably do is go ahead and just, we absolutely need help. We can have some discussions on that in some future shows, some future meetups. But one of the things I wanted to do is make sure before we leave the topic, we thank the donors. We had a lot of donors. If you actually look at it, these were our corporate donors in 2025. We talked about that we have 3 already platinum donors in 2026. But the individual donors really is what drove this. We had 31 of you actually contributed. So, I think that's really important. So, just as an FYI for everyone, you can donate to New Tracks Mentoring through Zephy. You get an automatic tax deduction if you do that. So this is the information. It's also on the website. We also will continue to have a Patreon account. We've had that traditionally. That doesn't have a donation built with it, but quite frankly, if you don't do an itemized application, it doesn't make any sense. But I think what you've said is that we really are now looking for 2 things: donations in 2026, 27 in 26, but also to find those applicants for next year. And Henry, I think that the ideas you have are absolutely great ideas. And what we're going to do is we'll probably dedicate a block to talking about some of those and getting some folks involved in one of our meetups in a couple of weeks.
Okay, I apologize for going on, but
I understand.
I'm invested in it. And once I get going,
I know you do. It's exciting. It's exciting.
I think
it's
this
exciting.
I think the scholarship idea is one of the greatest things going, and I support it wholeheartedly, just like the 31 guys that contributed with me.
Yep. No, exactly. Well, so I want to thank you, Henry, for taking on the scholarship and driving it. I think it's going to be great. You want to think about that: 3 $7,500 scholarships this year. From where we started, 3.5 years ago. I think we've made great progress. But does anybody have any questions for Henry about the scholarship and how to apply or anything?
Any questions?
Well, thanks, Henry. So what I'm going to do before I jump back into kind of the next step in the program, I want to jump back into kind of the next little piece I had. I thought it was time to stop listening to me. I tend to drone on a little bit. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk just a little bit about how we move New Tracks Live forward. This event that most of us see as our kind of Wednesday night get together. We get together with friends. And then interesting enough, a lot of us see those same friends at physical events, whether it's at a convention or a train show or some other event. So, really this virtual community extends beyond just being together virtually, but also physically. Like I said, when Jim talked to me about taking this over a couple of years ago, we talked about it, and I told him I really didn't think I could do it. This time I decided that I really was the right person to do it. But quite frankly, I don't think I can do it alone. I think I'll burn out and our community will just essentially go away. And I think a lot of virtual communities have gone away because they thought of themselves as being a show. So one of the things that I want to do is talk to you about what I see as how we make this community really vibrant and work. So the first point is that, a new host doesn't equal better content unless the host is really going out and just getting that content. So to make this work, I think what we've got to do is I need to get everyone here to be a content contributor. And I'll tell you what my challenge is, and I think very simply. We're going to look at things on a monthly schedule, a 4-week schedule, not a monthly schedule. If you do 3 or 4 segments every meetup we have, that means you have to have 12 to 16 or 14 segments. We have 2 or 3 of those segments are my build. So we need to have 11 segments of people actually doing something, a presentation every 4 weeks. What I need to do is figure out how I can have you help me do that, either by doing a presentation by yourself. If you have something, you're doing a build, take some pictures, Send me the pictures. We'll do a presentation on it. You'll do a presentation on it, a clinic on it. It'll all be an opportunity. Talk about what you've done and how you've done it. Um, Identifying someone that you've seen a great clinic of, or you've read a great article of. Part of the reason that want to include lots of people in our community is someone who writes an article, turn that article into a presentation, and then do it. And now you have the video of it. And we just manage that for folks and do it in the community where they can have the interactions. And we'll talk a little bit later when we do the layout tour about doing the information to do a layout tour video of your own layout or a friend's layout. If you're going out on layout tours at a convention, take some videos and some pictures of those. Ask the owner if they mind, and put them in for us. The other thing that this 4-week cycle leads me to is that if someone will commit to do basically the content as what I call here a segment host, where you'll agree to once every 4 weeks, you'll manage the content for a segment. That doesn't say you have to do it yourself. It says you can manage it. For example, if you're doing the N scale content, you can have an N scale vendor come in, or have someone come in and talk about their N scale modeling, or have an N scale layout tour. So there's lots of interesting ways we can have things that interest us as content. Right now, I'm kind of looking for someone to step forward and do a few segments. I may do one of these, but I'd really like somebody to step forward. HO scale, we have N scale, we have S scale, we have O scale, we have O high rail, we have large scale, but we're really missing HO scale. And since that's the majority of the modelers, would really love someone to step forward and say, I'll drive being an HO segment host. One of the other things I'd like to see us do is essentially my build, but about techniques. So one of the things that's very interesting when people do a build is halfway through you say, wow, I like the way they did that. And each of you knows probably something you've done that's a unique technique. My question, I think this is really a question of the group, is can we do the same thing we do with my build, which is very popular and has great content? Can we do the same thing with my technique, where basically once every 4 weeks or once a month, you submit your techniques and we package them up, and you can talk about, well, this is how I weather, this is how I do roofing, this is how I do whatever the modeling technique is that you have that you think is really people would like to hear about and use. DCC is another topic. MR electronics is kind of another. So I think the perspective here is that we need you. We need you to help us. If we want to have a great community, we have to come together as a great community and contribute. So I've put this up before. Look the URL. It's tinyurl.com NTM present. It's basically a form. Fill it out. Say, hey, I'd like to do this. I can do this. I saw this clinic. And the beauty of this is then we can actually use that information to essentially go find that content and bring it back to us as a group, but it's from the group. Anyway, with that, we're going to step into our next segment. Actually, I guess I should check and see, is Doc here? He said he might be late, so I think what we're going to have to do is jump ahead in our agenda from Doc, and I think we have.
Yet, Phil.
He's not here yet. No, I know, but Bernd is here, so we will jump to Bernd.
Okay, unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
There we go. You are on and good. And you're going to share. He's going to share his own slides. We're going to try him and share his slides. And actually, I think we ran his slides through and did them, but somehow they've gotten lost. So he's going to use his own slides. So we will go from there.
Let's see if I can do this again.
But so we will. Well, actually, there we go. Go ahead.
I just got to get it to. All right. Is it full screen?
There you are.
There we go.
There you are. Go for it.
Okay. A few weeks ago, I was on the HON3 groups IO, and there was a guy selling a Heisler, and I'm sort of collecting my HON3 stuff for eventually if I want a logging layout. So this is what he sent. You can see here on the bottom, he circled these plastic cups, and they were cracked. Now that's kind of reminds me of the Athearn ones that have all the cracked gears on them and all the other engines. I see, geez, that looks like a simple fix. And of course, it was brass and it was shiny, so I had to buy it. So this is what it looks like. You get a side view and a 3/4 front view. So that's a nice little engine. This is the bottom. This is what the bottom of this Shay looks like. This whole thing right here is that a drive gear. There's a little tiny gear in there. This is the cracked one, and this is the cracked one. Never having had one of these, I had no idea how to take it apart. So I just went ahead and I found there's 6 screws. The red arrows point to the 6 screws that takes the shell off. I says, well, that's a good start. Then I was wondering, well, how do you get the trucks off? So there's a screw here that has this piece of brass in that holds both axles in. Well, there's got to be a screw under there to take that off. Well, guess what? There's no screw under there. The only thing that does is it releases the wheel set, so you can take that out. Well, so we took that out. Then you can take the wheels out without taking the side rods off. The one thing you have to be careful of, right in this area here, are brakes, and the brake shoes are kind of on a real thin wire, and you can bend them very easily, which I did, but it didn't break anything. So here's how much room is in this area. Come on here. Where's my pointer? Right here. This part here had to be redone, and the other part back here. This was rather weird. It's actually a tang. It's not a cup with a ball in it like like we're used to. So, and this is how much room your hand has in one of these, which isn't very much. So then when I took the shell off, I found out where the screws are to take the trucks off. Here's one on the front. And the odd thing about these is the fact that the whole truck on one side picks up electricity and sends it through the whole frame. So you guys that are on DCC, you have to watch this very carefully. The other screws in the back here that take the truck off. I started posting some pictures, and I had one guy come back and tell me, well, why don't you use Hobbytown of Boston cups? And so I had a couple of those. I put them on there and took a picture. It says, you think these things will fit? No way. As you can see, they're quite large to the tiny things that are in there. The other truck in the back here, you see this black piece of plastic. This is actually an insulator, where this truck that this is screwed to is insulated because it picks up on the opposite side. If this touches the brass, you're going to have a dead short. So basically, here's the truck taken off. Here you can see the washer that would fit on top of here, and that's the screw. Somehow I didn't get these unlined right. You can see the wire from here comes down through and comes up here to the motor. So I don't think this motor is insulated from the frame. So if you do DCC, watch out. The next thing I had to do in order to get this plastic part off was take this little gearbox off. I've already taken the other end off here. At this end, you can see where the truck picks up the electric and then sends it through this wire up to the motor. So here it is all apart. Here's the motor with the gear on it that drives this gear here, which drives this little worm gear that drives that gear there, which then drives the truck. So I had to measure the shaft here on this one to make a new one, and I used a millimeter micrometer. This first big right here is 1 millimeter, and each one of these on the bottom is a 0.5 millimeter. So it's a 1.5 millimeter axle or shaft. So what I did is the piece on the chuck on the Shoreline lathe is a piece of Delrin, and I think it's an acetal or something like that plastic. That's the part I'm making to put using the engine, and this is the original part from the engine. Now, drilling a hole, use a small drill, obviously, and then I use a reamer. They do make reamers that are 1.5 millimeters in diameter. And a lot of guys I've seen on the forums think that all you really need is a drill to ream out a hole. It's not true. A reamer will follow the drill's hole. And if you drill a straight hole in a lathe, the reamer will follow a straight hole and you won't get any wobble out of it. So the next thing I had to do is I had to cut a slot in there. So I set up and believe it or not, I used my CNC Sureline mill on this. Basically what you do, and I lost my pointer again, is here's a little nub, and then this is a slitting saw, and I think it was something like 55,000 stick, maybe not at that. What you need to do is touch the top of that, take half of that diameter, go down, and then take half of the thickness of the slitting saw, so you get into the center of the little slot you need to cut. Well, guess what? I didn't do that very correctly. I sort of went off center. So back in the lathe, made another one. But this time I thought, okay, it'd be easier if I used a bigger diameter part and what they call touch off on top. And I believe I made this like a 1/2 inch, which meant I had to go down 1/4 of an inch. And then I had to go down half of the thickness of the blade, the slitting saw. Here it is. I'm cutting it. I gave the machine can be controlled manually through what's known as an MDI, or a machine direct instruction. I basically tell it where to move to and how fast to move. And occasionally I mess up and I tell it to move too fast. Here's a view saying that, okay, I'm pretty darn close right to center on that. So I cut this part here on the right is the part that I did. And this is the original part. Now here you can see how tiny these parts are sitting on a penny. Now this other picture I just took because I got so close to it. I used an LED light to shine on it so you could see it better, but I don't think that's that great. So what I did is, in order to find out if this part here and this worked without binding or anything, I didn't put the little gear back in here. I just assembled the gearbox and I turned it with a screwdriver and it ran pretty loose. So, and let's see if this will work. I took a quick video of it. This is something a friend of mine did for me a long time ago. And you'll notice I got dirty track. I had to give it a push. What's really weird is when you look at that, it looks like it jerks a little bit. I've been kind of wondering if it isn't the video, because it seems to be running pretty good. Now, when it goes backwards, it goes a little faster. So I think there's still some kind of bind I got to check out on it. I don't know. There's a rattling in there too. I think it's all this, where is it? The monkey motion in there. And it does run quieter when you put the shell back on because it's heavier. And that's the end. Thanks for watching. Any questions? No questions?
Hang on. Oh, there we go. Oh, kill that and come back. And so just out of curiosity, how long does it take to make a set of gears like that? I mean, because yeah, go ahead.
The gearing, those gears, any kind of spur gear is usually cut on what's called a hopper. Okay. And what they do is, I'm gonna show you if I can do another presentation some other time. And I can show you what kind of gears they are. They cut those on a hopper, and that takes a long time. And I think that's why you see a lot of models with plastic gears that are plastic injection. And what they do is on the bore, I believe they actually have it shrunk down so far that when you push it onto the shaft, there's any slight crack any sharp corner, I mean, on that gear, it's going to start cracking there. And that's why I think a lot of these drive lines and these plastic locomotives with plastic gears had broken gears.
Right.
I think the best thing to have is actually cut the gears in brass and use brass. I love the ones that were used to be put out by Hobbytown, the helical gears that they use in their drives. I love those gears. So it takes a long time to cut, and I think that's why they don't come show that much in
But
else.
the core components you made there, the universal joints, those took you what, a few hours to make, or?
It's kind of hard to say. It's spread out over a couple days, and like I said, there was a there's a lot of I missed that first couple of times. I go, oh, what the hell did I do wrong here? So um, that was just I got it fixed and it works. And how long it works, I don't know. I haven't got an HON3 layout yet, so.
That's good. Well, it's interesting because, doing a lot of 3D printing and design in 3D printing,
Mhm.
you realize that, a lot of it is not getting it right the first time, realizing the other things you need to do. I think the similar thing here. So,
Well, you ought to see
so
how many
that
cutters.
was,
You see how many cutters have died on my CNC machine from not doing it right the first time.
that's right. Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That was good. That's interesting. Something not all of us do. So,
Well,
Bernd,
I've probably got a couple of other ones that I can put together and have you look and see if you want to do that. Yeah, somebody got a question?
yes, I do. Bernd,
What?
it's Pat. I have a Lionel switcher that had the similar system is cracked, and it had
Uh-huh.
a little ball on each end with a pin through it, and
Right.
then it went into a sleeve very similar to that.
Uh-huh.
And boy, don't you think I didn't have fun trying to figure out how to get that fixed?
Yeah,
And it's very
imagine.
easy to break it. Very easy
Oh
to
yeah.
break.
Yeah, it is. They are. So,
Yeah.
well, I'm looking at I bought some ball bearings and I'm looking at making some out of actually using metal instead of plastic.
Yeah, it works better with metal. I ended up doing it
Yeah.
with metal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, well, that's one of the reasons I want to show what I do because not very many people see this, have an idea of what's involved with the
Mhm.
machines and stuff like that. That was one of the reasons hey, give it a shot and see what happens.
Thanks,
Okay, I'm
Bernd.
done. You're
Very
welcome.
good, Bernd. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, Bert. That
Also,
was, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'd like to say that there's not just structures in model railroading. There's other things that other people can't do like this. He's a good machinist, really is.
Okay,
Well,
Rich, I'll send you that brass locomotive now.
Well, I think that it's always an indication for all of us that there are all these skills, the skills that we have, there are other skills, and it's part of the differences in model railroading, all those aspects. I always think about there's the building aspect of model railroading, whether it's building structures or building scenery or building a layout. As you're going to see when we look at our video today, there's a lot of skills involved in that, in building. Then there's collecting, there's running trains and rail fanning, and then of course there's operating. So there's lots of aspects. So next we're going to have Bob. Doc's running a little late. He ended up being late to get here, so we're going to have Bob Davidson go on. But before we have Bob on, we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming My Build. So we're going to run a little video about My Build, and then we're going to have Chris Kors talk about the My Build coming up.
Welcome.
Sorry about that. We had a little miscommunication there between Pat and I, and we ran the wrong one. That's the one for when we actually do a My Build, which will be next week.
Don't miss the monthly New Tracks Modeling My Build event. My Build is where the modelers of New Tracks show what they have been building. See amazing modeling with some My Builds featuring specific topics for modeling. If you would like to have your models included in the My Build, please email your modeling photos to Chris Kors at railrunner130@hotmail.com. If you are a first-time My Build participant, please include a photo of yourself.
And we have Chris here to talk about the My Build, which is coming up very quickly.
Yeah, I didn't realize it until you said it, but next week, holy crap, it's quick. What did I just do here? It shared the wrong screen. Try this again. All right, next week, January 14th. Deadline is the 11th. Please, that's like 4 days away. So please get me your pictures, whatever you're working on, or even videos. If you've got some videos, that'd be kind of cool too. Anything goes, whatever you're working on, whatever you're stuck on, whatever you want to share, whatever cool thing you found at a train show, whatever you've got, please share it with us. Submission deadline for that is January 11th, and the next show after that will be February 25th. It'll also be an Anything Goes show, so it's a free for all. Then up in March we've got a challenge of rolling stock, and that'll be the March show, the March 25th, and then we'll go for another couple months with the Anything Goes, and we'll finish out the I guess we'll call it the My Build year with June 24th, which will be scratch builds. At which point we'll have a survey out, seeing what you guys want to have for challenges for next year. See if we can increase, or whether we stay the same or do less challenge shows. But anyway, it's all up to you. This is your segment. This is your opportunity to throw out some really cool stuff and whatever you've got. So anyway, if you have not participated in the past, like the video said, please send a photo of yourself. Also, please include a description. That way, if for whatever reason you're not there, I can talk semi-intelligently about what you've got. And oh, by the way, I don't know if anybody knows this, but Jim Kello writes an article based on the My Builds, and I'm not sure exactly where it all goes, but that information goes directly towards that article as well. So I'll turn it back over to you, Phil.
Hey, well, Chris, before you leave, I just want to ask a quick question. Should we hold off the My Build to the 21st? Would that be a better decision? Because I think it's a surprise for you and kind of a surprise for everybody. I don't really have a problem with doing that, but it's kind of I know it's a real-time decision, but is there a reason we chose the 14th that we can think of?
Yeah, there is, because it's actually over your left shoulder there, the Amherst show.
Oh, is that the next week? Okay.
Yeah, because
all right. No, that's a good reason then. No, that's cool. Like I said, I was going to say we could move it, but if the Amherst show is there and we don't want to do it during the Amherst show, before the Amherst show, that's fair.
Well, yeah, actually during that show, during that Wednesday show, I'll probably be loading up the car. So
exactly. No, peace. Well, thanks, Chris. So
yep, thank you.
Everybody get your stuff in for next week. Let's get those builds in. That's really important for next week to have folks bring in their things for next week. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
So with that, I'm going to invite Bob Davidson to jump in, and Bob is going to well, how we did not get Bob.
Well, you got the other
here
Bob.
We go. Yeah,
Bob, but not the right Bob.
So now what happened is between my clicking my mouse and Bob unmuted it jumped out from underneath me.
Oh,
So
sorry.
Bob is, before we start, I really wanted to thank Bob for a phenomenal job in 2025. Leading the scholarship through 2025. It was a very successful year in terms of fundraising. We have a nice reserve to be able to commit to do scholarships in the future. We're not quite to the point of being a quote unquote endowment, but it's actually a good position to be in going forward. And being able to do $3 $2,500, maybe even $4, if we get the right, we're in a position where if we get the right applicants, we can make the decision to add an additional one on. And of course, we know a better view of how well we've done fundraising come June at that time frame. So
Yeah.
thanks, Bob. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And Bob continues to be involved. He's actually the treasurer for New Tracks Mentoring as well.
Well, thank you, Phil.
So with that, I'll throw it to you.
All right. Actually, just to go off a little what Chris said, the articles that Jim writes show up in the O-Scale Resource magazine, which you hopefully are all subscribed to. So, so what I'm going to do, this actually comes from, I ran into Chris down in Timonium, and he kind of sparked my interest in maybe revisiting something that we had talked about a couple of years ago when I was doing my workshop series, and hopefully everybody can see this. So
Yep.
this is tips, tricks, and dollar store buys with yours truly, workshop on a budget. So what I want to talk about tonight are a few things. One is making the cut, techniques that we use to cut things. And then we're going to look at some dollar store finds, which actually isn't from a dollar store. And then finally, we're going to, a little segment I call Buck Boost Bonanza, which I think is kind of cool. We'll see what that is. So first off, making the cut, blades, choppers, and chatter. Chatter is not just talking about it, but chatter, as Bernd said, whether you're drilling or sawing, if something's rattling around, you're not going to have a good hole, you're not going to have a good cut. So basically, there are two types of cutters. You can have, and two types of cutting. You can have a subtractive process, which is a saw, whether it's a hand saw or a power saw, where you're physically removing material to split something into multiple pieces. Or you can have a compressive process, and that's really what you do when you're using a razor blade or a cutter. As you know, when you cut something, there's not sawdust laying on the table if you cut it with a knife. So what happens there, it's a compressive process. So first off, we'll look at the subtractive cutting. Sawing removes material to make the cut. Pretty basic. Now, all saw blades have a kerf. The kerf is the thickness of a cut. Again, as Bert said, not only do you have to go down to the center, but then you have to allow for the half of the width or half of the kerf of a blade if you want to cut something exactly in the middle. So the kerf is the thickness of the cut. There's also other things which I'm not going to get into here, but were in the original presentation. There are different types of tooth layouts and things like that. But anyway, the thing with a kerf is plan your cutting layout accordingly. If you have I say with a full sheet of plywood because I'm used to working in a big shop. But even if you have a 12-inch piece of lumber, if you're going to cut it with a saw, you are not going to get two 6-inch pieces of lumber because the kerf is going to remove, whether it's a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 of an inch, it's going to remove some material. So keep that in mind when you're doing sawing or subtractive cutting. All different types of saws, jig saws, band saws, circular saws, table saws. I actually have now settled in my model shop. I have a, what is it? A Rikon, I think it's a 10-inch or 11-inch bandsaw. And I put it on a swivel base so I could actually set it up to do ripping or quarter sawing or whatever I need to do. So, but these are all, basically these are motors attached to a blade, a tooth blade. Here's some hand saw examples, rip saws, crosscut saws. And again, that all goes to the tooth set. So the difference between a rip saw and a crosscut saw, they both have teeth. They may have different numbers of teeth per inch, but it's the set of the teeth, whether they are a better rip saw, which is with the grain, or crosscut, which is cutting across the grain. You also have keyhole saws, miter saws, hack saws. It's not just for wood, it's also for metal. But the common element here is they're all removing material to make a cut. Circular saw blades have different tooth sets. That's what I kind of referred to before, rakes and bevels. They're going to affect whether you're going to have a smoother cut, a wider cut, again, whether it'll be better for ripping or cross-cutting. The general rule is the more teeth there are on a blade, the smoother the cut will be. On linear saw blades, again, you have different tooth sets. But again, more teeth, a smoother cut. On a bandsaw, the way you're going to look at those is there's going to be the width, the thickness of the blade, whether it's 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. On larger machines, it might be up to 1 inch, and also the teeth per inch. So to cut some fine scroll work on a bandsaw, I use an 1/8 inch deep, if you will, bandsaw blade with, 14 or 16 teeth per inch. Jigsaws. A lot of people use jigsaws and they're great. Keep in mind, when you go to your local hardware store, most people are buying upcut jigsaw blades, which means that the teeth are cutting on the upstroke of the jigsaw, which is why they always break out the top surface of the material you're cutting. So you have a great piece of, finished plywood, or if it's a piece of plastic or whatever, and you mark out where you want to cut, and then you use an upcut saw, and it chips the hell out of it. Well, buy a downcut blade. You can buy downcut blades. So all of that chipping is going to occur on the underside. And again, with those, you also have TPI, teeth per inch. Specialty saws, Japanese, draw saws, those will cut on the backstroke. If you notice, if we've all used a hacksaw on metal. When you start it, you're drawing back on it because it's a smoother operation. It allows you to get started. Draw saws are the same way. Flush cut saws, there are knife saws. The picture on the left there, that is for a jigsaw, but it's made to cut either foam or insulation, hard foam, soft foam. Razor saws, those small saws that we use for stuff. Diamond blades, which you'll use on a jigsaw. And then oscillating tools, the buzzer tools. We use them. I use them too. They're good for flush cutting some stuff. They can be good for disparate materials, good for ceramics and things like that. Lots of ways to cut stuff. Sawing rules: use the right saw for the job. Clear your work area. Work safe. Support and clamp what you're cutting. Again, you don't want things rattling around. You're going to get a better cut, and you're going to be safer doing it. So support or clamp what you're cutting. Square your saw. If you have a circular saw or a jigsaw, just because that little gauge says it's at 90 degrees doesn't mean it's at 90 degrees. Get yourself a 1, 2, 3 block or use an engineering square. Make sure it's square. Same thing if you have a jigsaw. Never leave a power saw running. Never walk away and leave it running. I've seen too many accidents. Wear eye and ear protection, and always use a sharp blade, especially if you're cutting, some rough stuff and things start dulling down the blade. All you're going to do is burn up your wood, so go buy a new blade. Old saw is about sawing. Thanks, Dad. Let the saw do the work. It's a lot faster using a power saw than it is doing it by hand, but don't rush it. Don't bind the work. If you can tell that the motor is going under, stress, lighten up. Don't push so hard. Thanks to Ben Napier from Hometown, measure once, you'll cut twice. So measure twice. Make sure of your cut. And then my favorite is I cut it, and it's still too short. So I've heard that enough times in the shop. So now on to compressive cutting, which is basically blades, shears, and knives. Blades and shears compress and displace material to make the cut. That's what's important. You use that, to do that, we use either knives or blades. Single edge razor blades, utility knives, X-Acto knives, Olfa knives, scalpels. These are all doing compressive cutting. So There's a couple of rigs that you can buy, single edge blade choppers. I don't know where that's the chopper on the left, and that's Northwest chopper on the right, I think. If you want to drive the Cadillac, the Ultimation chopper is just a phenomenal piece of equipment. So these are all single edge blade choppers. Pretty much there's two types of blades that you're going to use in most any kind of knife or chopper. One on the left there is a V ground blade, which would be your typical mat knife blade. And then the other one circled there is the chisel blade. So that's a single sided, it looks like the side looking at a chisel. That's why it's called a chisel blade. The difference between the V ground and the single sided or chisel blade is this. So with a V ground cut, when you push the blade into the material you're cutting, it is compressing material on both sides of the blade. If you've ever cut through styrene or whatever and you make the cut and you can feel there's a little ridge on one side, you'll feel a ridge that you have to sand down. This is, obviously it's exaggerated, but this is what's happening. So you have the measured piece on the left and the scrap piece on the right. In chisel knife cutting, all of the compression, all of the offsetting takes place on the angled side, the ground side of the blade. So this is what's so nice about using a chisel knife when you're doing cutting. So this is what the Ultimation machine uses. You can use this on any of the choppers. It's just the difference is the blade. When I saw Chris down in Timonium, I told him I was hoping to see Ultimation there so I could buy some more blades. And Chris, thank you very much, told me to just go to the Lowe's and go in the carpet department, not in the tool department. Persona carpet blades are single chisel knife blades. And I bought 100 for 11 bucks. So the steal of the century. Thank you, Chris. But again, with any of the choppers, any of the your mat knives or whatever, you can use these blades. It's a universal blade. So square the dead side of your finished piece first. So what you want to do is square up your ends, then you're going to flip it, and then you're going to make your finishing cut also on the square unground side of the blade. Always hold down the finished pieces while you're cutting. Some pointed thoughts again, let the blade do the work. You know, if you're cutting through something and you have to do multiple strokes, do it. It'll be a better cut. Always put away knives when they're not in use. And seriously, protect your eyes. I've seen blades shatter, especially if you're cutting through some thick stuff. So if you want to see the full presentation, this is the link on the YouTube that will take you to the full presentation from a couple years ago. Any questions thus far, just on cutting or comments? They screw anything up?
I have one thing, Bob.
Sure, Pat.
I know that a lot of people run their saw blades too high out of a table saw.
Yes.
And they should only come through the material about 1/8 of an inch or better.
Yeah, use it. Yeah, that is typically true. The only exception to that is if you're cutting plexiglass.
Yeah, that's wicked stuff.
If you're cutting plexiglass, you want to crank the blade. If you're using a table saw, crank the blade up as high as it will go. Mm-hmm. Put down some painter's tape first.
Yep.
And then run it through.
Or slow the blade down.
Yeah, that's true. So, anyone else?
Yeah, one of the things I've heard is if you run it backwards through.
Yes,
through
you can also
your normal table saw blade with plexiglass. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, that's one thing. You can also do that same thing with a chop saw with aluminum.
I also did it where you hold the blade, make the blade just a micrometer above the layer of the plexiglass, so it's not chipping down at all. It's scraping away, and then go really slow into it. But you got to be really careful.
Right.
That's good.
Frankly, the best
good
way to
info.
do it is to cut it an eighth of an inch over and then round it.
So does anybody have a source for the chisel blades that are regular, the configuration of a single sided razor that you
Well, I
could
said
put into a?
it's available at any of the big box stores. You just want to go to the carpet department.
Yeah, but
Not
that one's the one that fits in the Unimation. It's
fits
not
in
a
anything.
normal.
And no, that will fit in a standard mat knife. That will fit in the chopper.
The chopper I thought used the more regular razor blades like you use in your Hondo, but that's cool.
Yeah, again, it's a universal mount.
Super.
Okay. It's a universal. These have the same slots
Oh,
in the top.
sorry, I just stopped your share.
Oh, okay.
And reshare it. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Let me get out of this and then I'll come
Yeah,
back
we were
in
already in
and share
discussions.
again.
We were already in a discussion. I didn't realize you were going back to it until I popped it out. Yeah.
That's okay. So continue to share. Okay. So yeah, they're all it's a universal, they will fit into any other chop thing. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Dollar fines. We'll do this kind of real quick. I don't want to take up too much more time. This is a dollar store fine, not from a dollar store. And frankly, there aren't. I went the other day and now we're up to $1.50 here in the States for just about everything. This I found at Sally Beauty, and you can get this either online or in store. And it's cool. It's a 4-way sanding stick. They're about 8 inches long. I'll hold one up. They were $3 or over $3 at my local hobby shop for a single one. This is great because it's coarse, medium, fine, and extra fine all on one stick. And the best thing is they're 99 cents. So it's just a great buy. And I use these all the time. So that's my little El Cheapo buy of the week. The last thing I want to talk about tonight, it's just really kind of just totally shifting gears, is Buck Boost Bonanza. I had an issue of needing a lot of different voltages on the layout for lighting, signals, accessories, just as it says. Some are 3 volt, 5 volt, if you're using USB stuff, 9 volt, 12 volt. Walters has some stuff that's 15 volt. Then I got some of the Woodland Scenics lighting. Those are 24 volt. And I'm like, I'm going to have 20 transformers under the layout. Not really. The solution is to use a DC to DC buck power converter module. Sounds really confusing, but it's not. So here's what they look like. Basically, what you have is an input over here on the left, an output on the right. You have a readout, which will tell you what your voltage is, and then you have a potentiometer up here at the top. This is like a constant turn. You can keep turning it. What this will do is this will adjust the voltage output down to 3 volts or 2 volts, regardless of your input. This will take anywhere, I think, to a 24 volt or 40 volt input. So what I did was I got a 24 volt power supply, a Meanwell power supply, because that was the highest voltage that I needed. And then I just split the output and I use these to regulate the voltage for all my other power needs. So here they are. You have an adjustable 4 to 40 volt input and an adjustable output of anywhere from 1.5 to 35 volts. These work incredibly well. And as you can see, you get 5 of them for $12. You can't beat it. So I have one good transformer. I think I have a 6 or an 8 amp 24 volt transformer. And then I use these to split everything out and just route it to where it's needed on the layout. It's worked out really well. The way I distribute it is excuse me, I use this, this is made for auto or for marine use. It's a five gang switch thing. So basically I would just run the 24 volts into that. Since I want to switch, a lot of this is I want to be able to switch lighting or whatever. So I use this to control 5 circuits. I have 2 of these, total of 10 circuits. And again, for $10. So it's just a great way to simplify, to just use one transformer, use these buck power converters. Now, I will say, just you can't increase the voltage. You can only decrease the voltage. 24 volts in, you're going to have the highest is 24 volts out, then you don't need one of these. But you can go all the way down to 1.5 volts output. So I have multiple types of lights. Some of the effect stuff, I have one of my buildings has a little welding effect, which was a 5-volt thing. I've got some 12-volt lighting inside other buildings. So this is just a great little solution. You don't have to be an engineer. You just use a little screwdriver. And what's great with these is these readouts on them are very accurate. I checked it against the digital multimeter, and they are spot on. So I recommend that for 12 bucks. And there that is on the layout. And I would say thank you. Any other
do they
questions?
use a heat sink or something to step down the voltage?
It says that it's like a capacitance thing. I don't know. There's an integrated circuit on it.
Okay.
Like I said,
I think they
rock solid. They don't get hot. I will say
Okay,
that.
that's
They
what I
do
was
not
wondering
get
about.
hot.
That's great.
it's a PWM circuit, just
Thank
like
you.
a decoder.
There
The
you
same
go.
thing as a decoder. What you do is you slice it, and then you run that in, and it turns out it looks like lower voltage.
Okay.
And so you're actually tuning the circuit when
Right.
you adjust it. It's the same concept as how decoder. We talk about decoders at some point in our DCC session. We'll talk about how decoders work, which is different than a rheostat.
Right.
So
Yeah. The
that
other
was
thing
great.
the other thing neat with this is if you have dimmable LEDs, I just set the voltage lower, and it dims the lights inside the buildings to where I want them. So I don't need a separate dimmer.
Yeah, I did one of the Miller signs, the Miller engineering signs, and they come with a pack with 3 batteries. They're like 4.5
Right.
volts.
Yeah.
And what you do is I just took one of the bucks. Now I have to admit, I cheaped out. I bought the ones without the digital display, and I think they're like $7.99 for 5 of them. So they're a little
Right.
bit cheaper,
Yeah.
but yeah, and what I do is actually it went in the building. I made sure there was a space inside the building and in an area that wasn't lit or scenic, and put that buck right in there. And they're so cheap, you can put them just about anywhere.
Yeah.
And then you just have a bus. The other thing we'll talk about is, I did the 212-volt supplies. So you've got a common rail, and you can run all your turnouts with that and have plus and minus 12 volts against the common rail. And that gives you 24 volts, but makes it really good to use bucks for if you need 16 volts for something like if you're running a Tam Valley booster or something like that, you can
Right.
actually generate that voltage off of it.
Right.
So cool. Thanks, Bob.
You're
Really
very
appreciate
welcome.
that. That was great.
Doc is
So
with us
we're
still.
now. Excuse me, Doc is here, but
Yes,
before
he
we
is.
jump to Doc, we're going to go ahead and do a layout video. So one of the things we're starting to do this year is some of the layout videos we're getting a little bit longer, and also thought it was good to have discussions about them. So we're going to go ahead and run that now. This is a little different layout video than you guys have seen in the past. And I'll go ahead and run it, and here we go. So I think you'll find this one interesting. Like I said, and feel free to make comments if you want to on this. It's not intended to be a fancy thing. So this is obviously a work in progress, but I thought it was incredibly interesting to just see the amount of bench work he has for the amount of track, which is going to give a very open scenery. And obviously the chili line on the Denver and Rio Grande Western, it's S and SN3 narrow gauge layout, but I just thought it was very interesting to see. So I'll let you guys check it out. You can see the scenes he's building too. There's that pre-planning of having the curved backdrop. any thoughts about that as a layout?
I thought it was interesting. He's using spline for his sub road bed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very
That's a lot
traditional,
of work.
very traditional build. L girders, spline road bed, homosode on top of that, and hand laid track.
Yep.
And you tell it's going to be an amazing layout. It's one of the things that I think is kind of cool about going to conventions is you sometimes go and see a layout like that that's under construction, and then imagine going back in 4 or 5 years or 6 years and seeing it when it's much more completed. So very, very cool to do. Well, so now we're going to go ahead and jump to our last segment for this evening, which is Doc Lovelace is going to talk about do an N-scale presentation on amazing N-scale graffiti. But before we do that, the N-scale segment is sponsored by National Trains, and we'll go ahead and run our little National Trains video for this.
National Capital Trains is the largest supplier of N-scale modeling products in the state of Virginia. We have been in business since 1989. We carry a full line of modeling products, specializing in N and HON3 scales. We carry a large selection of competitively priced high-quality N-scale products from Atlas, Bachmann, Digitrax, Intermountain, Cato, Microtrains, NCE, Pico, Rapido, Soundtracks, as well as brass. For foreign railroad train aficionados, we offer a wide selection of Japanese and European prototype trains. We are located 20 miles from Washington, D.C. in Springfield, Virginia. We are a short 7-minute drive off Interstate 95. Stop in and see us for the best in N-scale. We also have online ordering on our website, including great prices and expert advice. Call us for your N-scale modeling needs and advice. Use the QR code to visit our website. We look forward to serving you.
So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Doc, and we will see how you do that amazing graffiti. I think one of it is having those really steady hands. So
it helps. Yeah.
It helps. And of course, what I've got to do is I've got to get get your video up here. I am slacking on the job, quite frankly. It happens when you're having too much fun.
Well, I can preface this by saying this is in no way a master class of graffiti or N-scale graffiti, but I am happy to share my technique, and I think it can be useful. Probably more useful actually in larger scales, but
oh, absolutely. I think it's excellent. It's really is. It's one of those things that, if you're modeling narrow gauge in 1920, graffiti had a whole different characteristic than it does today in the modern world. It's an essential element for anyone who wants to model prototypically the real world. We can argue whether that's good or bad, but from a pure modeling perspective, it is. So here we go. We'll go ahead and let you get started, and we'll go through the presentation here.
Yeah, as I said, this is not a study as far as I look at it, but I am going to share some of the techniques that I use, some of the places where I got inspiration, and some of the prototypes that I'm modeling. And I'm also going to share in this a little bit about the bridge color that we touched on last presentation. So you can go ahead and go to the next one, brother. Okay, so this looks very strange, but they're all numbered. This is just how my brain works. If I wanted to make a graffiti piece for New Tracks modeling, let's say, I just start out and I write the letters down, all different ways that I can think to write them, and I try to find symmetry. Like where is the symmetry? What makes it look more like a drawing or an art piece than just letters? And there's a million ways you can do this. There's 1,000 ways you can do this. And then when I got to the bottom, I found one that looked like, you know, if I touched it up a little bit, it would be what I would call a believable graffiti piece. But like I said, there's a million ways you can do this. This is just my process. A lot of the times I don't try to create my own graffiti because I mean, that's essentially not modeling what I see. But if there's a case where you did need to do that, you know, just sit there and sketch it out. And you'll be surprised what you can come up with in 10 minutes. But next. All right, so on this picture, on the bottom, or on the two pictures to the left there, that is actually the commissioned graffiti work or murals that I had told you about last time that are on the Hell's Gate Bridge. These might be a little bit too intricate for me to do by hand. I guarantee you the one on the left is. So that might be a situation where I do have some decals made. And on the right picture, you'll see a collage of different graffiti pieces that are found on subway cars around the 5 boroughs of Manhattan, and those are certainly out of my league. You can do a lot of different ways you could do this. You might be able to pull it off with airbrush work and clean it up with some fine-tipped paint pens, or I would say the best route for these would be decals. But I just wanted to show you guys just how intricate and wild this artwork gets. And if, you know, if you're modeling an urban environment, this is part of weathering for us. So just to show you how difficult it can get. Next. Okay, so this is actually part of the bridge, but it's a little bit farther down on Randall's Island. It's called the Little Hellgate Bridge. So I just picked a random picture that was associated with the bridge, and I said, all right, this is what I'm going to use for the show, and I'm going to replicate that. So the next one will show you my process as I go along. So this is just a back of a piece of retaining wall I made. The left picture shows I just start with a pencil. Generally, I will draw this a little bit lighter than I did here, but I didn't feel we needed that many pictures. So this is after I felt like I got pretty much exactly the look of what it was and the size of each letter and the spacing and everything. So next is to pull out the acrylic paint markers and yeah, go to the next. Now, the first thing that I do is I do the entire thing white. I know that doesn't make much sense, but it will in just a second. Paint everything white, even if it has, you know, negative space. It does not matter. Just paint it all white. And then if there's any black elements, like with this one, I was going to say, well, you know, the inside's going to be black. So I chose to do a Sharpie here. I have a few different brands of acrylic paint pens that will work just as well. Sharpie for me was just quicker and will do it as well. And now you can go to the next step. So the next step is I pull out my white acrylic, and as you can see, the difference is I'm really sharpening up those outlined areas where I maybe went a little bit too hard on the black, kind of over, you know, the same way we would do with window treatments, basically. And then the final picture on the right is why I told you that I do everything white. If I were to try to paint a green or a blue on that material that has already been painted, it's going to dull the color, and it's going to give it a very odd, not exactly what you're going for look. But as it's already primed with the white, you can see here that you can go over it with any color after that, and it shows perfectly. So granted, this is not exactly what was on the bridge. I'm just showing you as an example of that piece, that specific piece that, you know, you could do it any color you want. And I do this all with acrylic paint pens. So go to the next one. All right, so this is also some views underneath the bridge that I'm doing. A lot of that graffiti work that I told you about is found under there, but it's more the nicer commission pieces, like I was saying. But notice we talked about this last time. Notice all the different, what I have come to call mauve colors that you'll find. Just pick out a couple of them, you know, find any two colors you like there. All right, go to the next one. And this is exactly what I'm modeling, the area at least. So if you look at the bridge on the left picture, the elevated rail that goes back splits the park probably about 3/4 of the way down. If you went about the exact same distance on the other side of the bridge to where it almost cut the park in half, that's what I'm modeling to. So about the same side on each side of the bridge and back about 4 or 5 blocks. As far as the other side of the bridge, it would be the right on this picture. I'm not sure how far I'm going to go, but I definitely want to make sure that I get the urban and the residential part of this and the park done first. All right, next one. So do you remember the two colors you picked? Because I guarantee you can find them on this. I have looked at those pictures thousands and thousands of times, and there isn't a color on this palette that isn't found on that bridge. And I know that a lot of it is paint that they did specifically for the bridge that has deteriorated and faded over time. Some of it is oxidation. Some of it is things that just happen to metal and elements out in the environment. But either way, I have found every single color on this palette right here on that bridge, which is wild if you think about the variations of these. But this is something I think everybody should have in their holster right here is this color palette. Next. So back to some more graffiti pieces. The left two, again, are the ones I told you are commission pieces. The ones on the right, the top picture is the one that I've already completed, but this is the actual bridge, not mine. And the bottom is the other side of that particular tower. So that's what you guys get to see next. Me try to pull that off with the eyeball and whatever. I don't know what it is, but so this is some different type. Oh, you can go. That's cool. Go to the next one. This is just some different types of brick as well. And kind of, it doesn't necessarily have to be some magical showpiece that you do. Just different fading of colors from when somebody painted over a graffiti piece 10 years ago. It is weathering in urban environments, and it's shown everywhere. If you just walk around and go down the wrong alley, you will notice it's not that pretty, and it's not perfect, and it's not all one color. But these are fun things to model. It's as fun to me as chipboard and paint scraping off of a wooden cabin. This is just as fun. It can be difficult, but it's worth it. On the bottom right picture of this is a gentleman actually standing on one of the towers of the Hell's Gate Bridge. So that top part that I told you last time is kind of in the shape of the letter I. There's some graffiti work obviously littered all around the inside edge of that. So I'm going to try to do my best with that, but we're getting down to millimeters at that point. But I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a shot. All right, next. Just some more examples of how crazy this can get. I don't think this needs much talk. Just it can get wild. Next. All right, so I wanted to share these two pictures because I wanted to ask if anybody would notice if you were trying to replicate these two particular. The picture on the right isn't the best example, but why these would be not ideal. And I'm not gonna pause and wait for everybody to respond. I'll just go ahead and tell you, it's because they're at an angle. It's not that it's impossible to do at all. but it does make it very difficult. Now, if it's your only option, then sure, go for it. But if you're actually trying to emulate something exactly perfectly, do your best to find a picture that is exactly straightforward. But like I said, it doesn't change things much, I'm sure, and you can probably figure it out. But I would just suggest doing that because I've had a problem with a few that I've found on the bridge that I can only find one angle of. So I'm going to try to find other ways to get those pictures. So next. All right, so these are the three main ways I know that people do graffiti. On the left is airbrush, and that's usually going to be better for bigger scales. The two on the right are better for smaller scales. Decals are just amazing. The quality of the artwork is unmatched. So if you really have an interesting and intricate piece that you need perfect, there's plenty of people out there that print decals. I'm sure you could, I know that there's people in this group that know how to do it themselves. I'm not one of them, but I'm sure they could help you if you needed. And then on the right is my technique with paint pens. This particular one was done with Posca pens, which is about the exact same quality as the ones I use. So next. And right here is, I thought, a wonderful example of someone using paint pens to do, they use paint pens and very little airbrush to pull this off. And this looks to be O scale by the looks of it. But I mean, just look how tiny some of that is. It's so wonderfully done. And if it's the area that you're modeling, needs this, these are the things to do to make it happen. They deserve to be in the model. All right, next. All right, so that's it. So I wanted to share a new picture of my wonderful dog. This is Ophelia standing with one of the National Guards women that are currently in Memphis protecting us. And she actually, her photograph got more likes on the Tennessee National Guard Facebook page than any other picture posted in the 3 months since they've been here. So she's still a big deal. So that's it. And I think the last one's just her telling y'all Merry Christmas, but that's it. Yep. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Any questions? Let me know. Otherwise,
there we go. I couldn't find the stop share.
Oh, it's a
Great job, Greg. Great job.
Excellent. I think those paint pens, that's something that acrylic paint pens is something I haven't invested in. And next time I see a good deal on that, do they sell those at Michael's, and they're just available at those places, I'm sure, on Amazon as well.
Temu.
Wow.
Yeah, no, those are great. That's I like the idea of the painting it white in the background, the back end to keep the bleed over. That's an important tip. You try doing that.
You don't have to, but like this material, see, this is the other side that I did all the graffiti on. This is the actual retaining wall. And see, I mean, you have to remember patches where maybe somebody has come along and said, I don't want that on there, and they paint over it. That's going to be noticed. I mean, that's going to be seen, and that's part of it. This is just what I did it on, but as you can see, I mean, all these different colors that come in on that, they would not look like that if I didn't, I guess prime it is the word. I don't know what the word would be, but we'll paint it white first. It would be dulled a little bit, and it's not as vibrant and bright as if you add that white. So I've got white for days, tons of them.
Cool.
Yeah, and Doc, that's the same thing that you need to do if you're printing decals sometimes, is you need to put down a white base first to put all your colors on. Otherwise, they don't get the reflective quality that you want.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
if you're creating decals, you need to put a white background behind all of it, unless
Okay.
you want something showing through, which usually you don't.
Okay.
You want it's the opacity block that you get behind it for the fact that some of your colors actually are somewhat transparent. I don't know if you remember when I did the session on using PowerPoint to create basically transparencies, and of course the problem is you can't print white essentially, except there's a very specific printers for white. But what you can do if you're printing just black, you can actually cut out little pieces of the black and make them semi-transparent so that the background colors show through, and that makes it look like chip paint. But it's the same reason that more transparent you can see through. Cool. Any other, so this is the interesting thought process for a lot of us in the community. A lot of us are modeling older things and narrow gauge before. It might be interesting to try modeling something at a prototype level. I know that if you've been to a prototype modelers event, there are some amazing prototype modelers doing graffiti on cars and other things like that. So, well, thanks, Doc. Really appreciate it. And I think that brings us pretty much to the end of our show tonight. I'm not supposed to use the word show. I'm supposed to say our meetup. We traditionally have a little bit of an invocation here at the end with Father Ron. So Father Ron, we'll ask you to join us and bid us adieu here as we go away into the evening.
Master Maker of the universe, our scale models imitate your creative spirit, and we learn the genius of your handiwork. Teach us to appreciate all you have made. Amen.
Thank you, Father Ron. It's interesting. I think about that we're in this business of modeling this amazing world we live in, and we can take total responsibility for what we build, but we can take no responsibility for what we base our models on. Whether it's our own imagination interpreting the world or a direct prototypical representation. I think it's cool sometimes to be thankful for what we have. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't be able to model. So thank you. And I will hold you that I know you're building a model, and we're going to hold you to that, Father Ron. He's going to be one of our build along modelers. So right. With that, we've come to the end of our formal meetup tonight. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and we have a caboose for tonight, and we will go ahead and have a little caboose. It's an interesting caboose. It continues our N scale theme of the evening. So what's interesting about this layout is to look at it and think about basically how large the layout is versus how large it appears. And you'll kind of get that a little bit from it. Excellent detail. In Japan's another society that really does have a great model railroading heritage. kind of close the show with a couple of comments. I hope everyone enjoyed and this direction we're going to go. Just a couple of final thoughts. One of the things Jim always said is, if you came and didn't learn something, you really weren't listening. I thought there were a couple, 3 or 4 things I learned that were really interesting in terms of, from Doc, the white background, from Bob, some of the things about cutting. I'd never really thought effectively about the cutting and using chisel blades. So those are great things. And then I guess the last 2 things to see how observant you were, on the layout video, did anybody notice the chrome plated potbelly stove? So something to go back and watch that again and see. There was an amazing chrome plated 5-foot tall potbelly stove in that room that you totally missed.
Was that refurbished?
And then the
No,
I thought it was a giant trophy. It looked like the Stanley Cup.
No,
it looked like the Stanley Cup trophy, but I think go back and look at it. I think it was a potbelly stove. I didn't notice it when I was in the layout because I was focused on the layout, but in the video it's kind of off on the left. So anyway, just an interesting thing. And then the final thing is, I don't know if anybody thought about that Japanese layout, by the way, was about 7 or 8 feet long, and it's an automated switching layout, or like you have in the UK, where different trains come in and out from the sides. But what was the one thing, having had the great presentation by Doc, did anybody notice the one thing about that layout that it totally lacked? It was a modern layout and it totally lacked graffiti. So interesting comment. Anyway, thanks to everyone for coming this week. Like I said, take some time this week. Content wise, presentation wise, we need help. So if you have someone who could do a presentation, go on that form, click on it, or send me an email. If you got me an email, give me a contact and we'll contact them and talk to them. So thanks again. We'll wish everybody adieu and have a great week.
One comment, guys.